years ago, Colin Kaepernick was the starting quarterback in the Super Bowl and 7 yards away from it all, right? 7 yards away from what you talk about, being a Super Bowl champion. Now, one of the great ifs of the Kaepernick story is if they'd won that Super Bowl, how does that affect everything that happens subsequently? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Right Time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. It is Foxworth Friday. Domonique Foxworth, what's going on?
Offseason is here.
Is there ever really the offseason?
I mean, it should be. I don't know if other people agree with this, but I like to miss stuff. You know, like I like to yearn. that makes it better. Like I'm happy to lean in on basketball, get away from football, and then get excited when it's July and we're like, oh, the smell of the grass. That's my personal feeling. I just too much of a good thing is a real thing in my world.
No, that's one thing about the NBA, and shout out to New York City outside with these sirens. Sorry, folks, I don't feel like stopping. We normally like stop down when the sirens start coming in the background. This ain't no studio, it's my house. Anyway, like the NBA got 2 months where it's gone, right? They keep trying to like keep this thing around. Nah, Summer League, I mean, if you want to go, it's cool, right? But they give you a little time to act like it ain't there. Baseball, when it goes away, it goes away. The NFL is like, nah, I'm right here, dog.
I mean, it's one of the drawbacks, one of the less painful drawbacks of capitalism is there is no roof. There's no satisfying them. It's like we want more days, more games, dominate more of the calendar, more of your money, more. Like, can't they just run a mom and pop? a $25 billion mom and pop, but just like, yeah, let's keep these lights on. Let's chill out. People like us, and let's just keep it spinning. It's not, you don't have to own every single month, every holiday, every off-season story. It's just, it's a lot. Let a brother yearn.
Yeah, they ain't never got enough money, boy. Ever. Like, that's the wildest thing to me when I look at people like who get to that point in life and there's still never enough money.
I mean, obviously it's not about the money at a certain point. It's about, I feel like we might have talked about the studies. There's plenty of studies out there that say that like money does buy you happiness up to like a certain point, and it's like low. It's like 1 comma, but then you get to the 2 comma area, and some of these fools out here with 3 commas in digits afterwards, and still out here trying to make investments and buy more stuff. Like, I guess you got to find purpose in life, and they got to look for it
this
elsewhere.
Is what passes for purpose.
Yeah, that's
I think like
part.
The wildest thing. This is what passes for purpose.
I don't get it, man. We talked about this a bunch when we talk about Tom Brady. It's like, I ain't built like that, and it's okay. And I think most guys in professional sports aren't built like that, but we're not trained to accept it, and we're not trained to say it. Because if I'm being completely honest, winning a championship was one of the most important things. But it wasn't the most important things. But if anybody asked me, and I probably also convinced myself, like I really believed it. But then, like, you go back and explore some of your actions, and you're like, well, actually, the decisions you were making suggest that it was not the most important thing, which is okay.
Yeah, like
okay.
I feel like my number one thing is winning a championship. Like, if we get the truth serum out there, the farther away from the ball you move,
yeah,
I imagine that sensation dissipates more greatly, right? Because then out there, like, you're going to be on a Super Bowl winning team.
Yeah.
That is not exactly the same thing as winning a championship. Like, I'd love to have some punter roll up and be like, well, look, when I won a championship, I'm going to tell you about the focus that it required. And he was a member of a championship winning team. And by the way, an important piece.
Yeah. It's absurd to me, though, to think about what you're pointing out is it's football, it's quarterbacks. It's like them saying that it's all about winning a championship is less team first. than a cornerback saying it, because the cornerback, and to be fair, when you win championships, everybody gets paid. So it is to the advantage of everyone, but it's less so. Like Joe Flacco benefited from that Super Bowl run more than anybody on that roster, including Ray Lewis. And Ed Reed's went to the Hall of Fame, and all these guys had great careers and a lot of success and are thought of more highly because Joe Flacco blacked out for that playoff round and was cooking. But Joe Flacco got that huge deal off the strength of that. Otherwise, if they'd have got knocked out in the first round that year, which was definitely possible, he might have been looking for a job. He certainly wouldn't have been negotiating at the top end of that deal. So yeah, you're right. And it's those guys that impacts them more, their legacy, the way we talked about their money more. So while it feels like a benevolent thing to say, team first, win the championship, for coaches and quarterbacks, it means something different to their life and their like individual self-worth and the way we all think and talk about them.
So that you got it to Flacco, and that leads me to something tangential. I mentioned on Game Theory a couple of weeks ago, but I was actually very surprised we didn't see more discussion of this in the week going into the Super Bowl. But 10 years ago, Colin Kaepernick was the starting quarterback in the Super Bowl and 7 yards away from it all, right? 7 yards away from what you talk about, being a Super Bowl champion. Now, one of the great ifs of the Kaepernick story is if they'd won that Super Bowl, how does that affect everything that happens subsequently? And honestly, I also look at that in the context of how would that have affected Colin Kaepernick as a football player? Like, forget about the idea of the perception, right? Mm-hmm. I do think there's something to, and just from watching it, it doesn't happen with everybody, but that confidence that comes from like knowing you a champion, it goes, it matters. And I don't think it really landed on me until the Raptors won the NBA championship in 2019. And then in 2020, they were in the bubble. And remember, this is the team we were all like, they can't get it done. They can't get it done. When it seemed to be, they just couldn't beat LeBron. But it was like, they can't get it done. They don't have it, whatever. They won that championship in 2019. And then in 2020, they had that bubble playoff series where they had the backs against the wall. And then they look like champions, right? They look like that thing that happens, but only seems to happen after you win a championship.
Yep.
Right? Like for whatever reason, that there's something mental. Like I think I told you, as I look at like those quarterbacks that fall off the cliff, like I don't think Carson Wentz suddenly became like some kind of physically worse player. Is right here, right? Like something changes there. And so if Kaepernick has that struggle year that he has, how does that go for him? And then like, how is that treated? Like all of those things go together. But this league is really just trying to act like this dude ain't never happened before. Because like, as I was watching Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl, and he played excellently, right? I don't care about the fumble, anything else, right? He ran for 3 touchdowns and threw for 300 yards, okay? That's video game stuff. He played excellently. The best of Colin Kaepernick in like 2012 and 2013 was probably better than the best of Jalen Hurts because the ceiling was so high on that. And remember, there wasn't no A.J. Brown for Kaepernick to throw the ball to. When they needed a big play, and I don't mean like a 3rd and 7 big play, I mean like a 3rd and 13, they was splitting your man, Vernon Davis, out wide to go make it happen. That dude, there was a moment where he looked like he could be so cold. And we have forgotten that, right? Like in the midst of everything else, there are these dudes like him that we just forget. Dude, do you realize what the ceiling was on him? And it really shocked me that all media coverage, not just the, like direct NFL stuff, but the ESPNs, Fox, Sports Illustrated, anybody that's into more interesting stories, the only person I heard bring up the fact that this was the 10-year-old Colin Kaepernick, honestly, was me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the Crabtree was another guy they threw to. And but
he's the eye.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't saying that to say, to get me clear, I wasn't saying like Crabtree was a true number one, but I remember him because Jimmy Smith had that coverage on him that some people considered a hold that was, had they called it another way, we'd be talking about Kaepernick, the Super Bowl champ. And I think everything's different. Everything is different going forward. I don't know how different it is, but he's treated different. He's differently. He's talked about differently. And who knows if the kneeling ever becomes a thing or the sitting during national anthem ever becomes a thing But if it does, I do feel like that still gets treated differently because there's something about being a Super Bowl champion quarterback that just elevates you. And you started talking about the psychological stuff. That's like, you know how interesting I find that stuff, because that's the frontier that we've yet to be able to ruin with all the like quantification of everything else. And so not that I'm an anti-analytics guy, I appreciate it, it's helpful, but people who don't accept that part of the game don't appreciate that your numbers can be wrong. And there's something to be said for all that stuff has emotional impact. This thing I think that CEO that I was talking to you about last time we were on mentioned to me that he was I was trying to like use all my knowledge of like business ratios and stuff and like understand how, when you run a company that big, how you make decisions, what are the inputs that you use, the processes that you go through. And I was so shocked. And you know how big the company is, you know who the person is. I was so shocked that he was kind of like, yeah, honestly, it's emotional and it's about feel. And the biggest mistakes I've made were when I leaned in on analytics and factored in how much money we were going to lose or how this was going to impact the stock price, and did not appreciate the goodwill, the emotional and psychic value of decisions when you're dealing with people. And we see that happen so much, particularly in the NBA now, where you hear GMs or spokespeople for GMs complaining about the players having so much influence. And I think they have to understand that their job has changed. It's a different job now. And maybe it's a job that you're not built for, and maybe it's a job that you don't want to do. So go do something else. I'm sorry. The world has changed. Your job is more about creating buy-in and developing a relationship where your stars trust you than it is just about moving pieces around on a chessboard.
Well, I think it's less, particularly in sports, that the job has changed than these cats tried to change the job and got it wrong.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
Classic case in point is Daryl Morey, right? Now, I want to be clear. Daryl Morey is really good at his job, right? And you go look at the time he had in Houston and everything else, without ever having the option to tear the thing down to the studs, he figured out how to build it into a legitimate championship contender, right? Like, he played the numbers to get James Harden. That was the biggest one, was that the numbers told him there's a superstar in hiding right there. Now, I would also make the argument that eyeballs could have told you there was a superstar in hiding in James Harden, right? You just had to divorce yourself from the idea that he was the guy coming off the bench. But either way, they had the numbers to indicate that this was the guy and played into all the stuff, you know, layups, free throws, three-pointers, right? Like, that was the Morey thing. But Morey also very clearly does not believe that chemistry is a thing.
Yeah.
You know, and that's been it from the beginning. This was my thing when they didn't want to trade Ben Simmons last year, and they were just holding on to it. I'm like, nah, man, bad juju. You got to get this cat up out of here. Like, there's some people you can't just have hanging around. And he waited until he got it. Look, he got James Harden for it. So, you know, I guess, and James Harden's back to playing at an elite level. So, hey, good for him that it worked out in that way. But there was a toll that was taken along the way by you waiting so long in doing that. That's how this game works. Like, it did happen. And I think as the numbers guys try to get in and just be like, no, this is what's going to work. Those work as general tendencies, but this isn't blackjack in that you always split aces, right? Like, there are a few things that are the aces that you always split them. But sometimes in this world, you got to hit on 17, right? Sometimes in this world, you got to look at it differently. And so I think that the pre-numbers guys were all like Phil Jackson, super feel guy, like super understanding. This guy's got to fit with this guy.
Yep.
This guy's got to go with that guy, or whatever, you know, or how it goes. But the analytics people, who I would like to note are often terrible at people's stuff in their own lives. Like, this is not the only place where they seem to suffer from shortages of emotional intelligence. They miss that. The other thing I think the analytics guys miss that is very important, and especially in football. All right. So in basketball, you really got two seasons. It's the regular season and the playoffs. And there are things that matter in the playoffs that are different, the way the game's called, everything else. But it's going to make a lot of your regular season sample not as important because it does not accurately reflect the postseason game. Great example, Rudy Gobert. Right? Rudy Gobert is far more impactful as a regular season player. And where he is like no-brainer Hall of Famer, oh my God. And as a postseason player, it doesn't go the same. With football, where I always find the divide is the larger sample is played from September through January. The playoffs are played from January to February when it's a lot colder, when guys are a lot more hurt, right? Mm-hmm. Like I always say, you look back on it, why, passing is so much more efficient. Why didn't they do it before? Well, before it was really hard because the rules were a little different. And by the way, when you get to the end, it's really cold.
Yeah. And people are beat up and worn down, and the precision that's required between 11 guys in concert to execute a successful passing play is a little bit more difficult. The reason why, it becomes more difficult because there's so many things that need to work well. So to have a successful running play, you can miss a block on the backside. You can have a running back break a tackle. To have a successful passing play, you can't miss that backside block. You got to get open. You got to catch that pass. And those things are, I think, in a smaller sample, and again, to your point, over a larger sample, yeah, that's going to work. But over that smaller sample, it's like, hey, sometimes it's good to just get 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Right. All that matters is right now. Right? Yeah, like the only thing that matters is right now. The place where the analytics guys in football obviously have helped the game and made a lot more sense is going for 4th downs and 1s, like when you got Squat Man back there, for example, right? Like, yeah, we got this. Go ahead. Yeah. Like, that's I ain't scared.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but the thing about analytics in football is it's different than the other games. And I think it's because of the complexity of the game of football, because the analytics does not give you a right answer in football.
Correct.
The analytics gives you a way to succeed in a bunch of different ways because the game is so complex, because you have offensive linemen and receivers and running backs, and they're all different sizes. And you have blitzes, you have coverages, you have all these other things. Whereas basketball and baseball, there is kind of an optimal way to play that game from an analytic standpoint, which I think kind of sucks the fun out of it. So like you turn on a football game, you can tell, if I didn't know who the players were, I could tell you the team by their style of play in many cases. And I can tell you the coaching tree that they came from, and they're that distinct. But now it seems like in some of these other games, it's like there's one philosophy and coaching tree that makes it really hard. And your point about basketball changing, I think the difference between regular season basketball and postseason basketball is the biggest difference of any sport, regular season, postseason, in large part because you're so much more based on intelligence and adaptability in those situations, because the game planning is so much more intense. And then there's also a level of intensity that you cannot realistically bring to 82 games.
82.
That you now bring into these games. So yeah, it's very different. Football, people say playoff football, but the big difference, I think, is what you pointed out earlier, is the weather and people was hurt. But like, you're not putting in that much more effort game plan wise. You got the same amount of time, you put in the same amount of effort. Those games seem just as valuable. Maybe you pull out a couple more trick plays, but football is football year round, with the exception of the things that you pointed out.
And as people learned late in the 4th quarter of the Super Bowl, football doesn't really have the notion of like playoff foul standards. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Like, I know we've talked about this all week, but I just don't know why people fighting the obvious fact that was a hold.
Yeah.
Like, he impeded the man's progress down the field, and to get these video game numbers y'all love, they got to make that call. That man even admitted it himself that he made the hold. Like, it was a hold. That's what it was. Basketball, no. In the playoffs, you're right. That would not be a foul.
Yeah, and I don't get people being upset. I mean, I do get it. The line that I've been using is it's okay to be disappointed without being angry. They're like, yeah, that sucked. I wanted Jalen Hurts to get a shot to go down the field too. But then you take that like energy that you have from there. You're like, man, I got to blame somebody. It's the ref's fault. Like, no, the ref made the call he's supposed to make in that situation. It seemed reasonable. And yeah, it sucked. I wanted Jalen Hurts to get a chance too. His 2-point conversion play was unlike what you see from quarterback. Like, he looked like a fullback, like his size and build just busted through there, but we didn't get that. And that sucks. I'm sorry, guys. The script wasn't written properly.
Hey, was it undebatable that I heard y'all talking about this? But like, they absolutely have to be crafting their legislation right now to make the quarterback push and sneak they gonna have to get that one out of there, right?
That's out of there.
I gotta admit, it's kind of not fair.
Yeah, and it's not even out of there because it's not fair to me. It's out of there because going for it on 4th and 1 is exciting. They made that shit boring. That's what I went and got up to go to the bathroom. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Let me go hit the toilet real quick so I don't miss an important play. It's like a kneel down at this point.
One of my favorite stories about John Madden and like the making of that video game is one day he said he was with like some grandkids or nephews or something like that, and they were going for it on 4th down every time and getting it. And John Madden called the engineers, "Hey, something got to change." Like, ain't nobody getting all these 4th and 7s. Ain't nobody going for all these 4th and 7s. And so they I think they turned their computer assistants up on your crazy 4th down because they're like, "Hey, man, it ain't supposed to be that, except it's so much more fun that way."
It is so much more fun that way. Who wants to? Well, I guess when Kadarius Toney is back there receiving punts, it is fun to punt. That play, man, that he made. I know he hurt a lot, but I would be too if I put that type of stress on my joints. Like, it is worth it.
What I want to see from Kadarius Toney is I want to see what he be doing in practice. And the reason I say that is I saw some stat that has him somewhere in like the top 20 in the league of percentage. Basically, when he's on the field, the percentage of times that he touches the ball is in the top 20 of the NFL. It's like, you remember when Percy Harvin first hit the league? Exactly. And it was like, if he's in here, it's because they're going to give him the ball. They don't have any idea how exactly they should give him the ball, but he did something in practice that is indicating, man, we just got to give him the ball and hope that right there works out. Kadarius Toney is the current version of that one, because I just swear he must be in there like injuring dudes. You know what I'm saying?
It's like when they put Devin Hester on offense, or they put D on offense with Dion out there. I remember a playoff game when I was with the Falcons. We played the Cardinals, and it was dumb ego, whatever. But anyway, they put DRC in at receiver, and we were in man coverage, and he was on my side, and I was like, oh, I'm going up to press him because he not comfortable with this. And I knew in my head this gonna be an all-out sprint, so he just outside release, started running. I started running too. And Kurt Warner threw it up. I managed to I think he ended up overthrowing it, but I stayed with him. But it's that same sort of thing where it's like, what you put him out there for? Either one or two things. He don't know the offense, he can't block, or he just too damn cold to waste a rep because he might get hurt. And I think with Toney, it's the latter where it's like, man, we're not going to have him for a whole lot of plays, but when he out there, we're going to give him that thing.
Man, I watched some cut up when he was coming into the draft because I watched him in college, and I mean, he seemed okay, right? Mm-hmm. But he didn't really jump off the screen. I watched one of them draft cut ups, and I'm like, whoa, that dude changes his mind quick. like I was going, nope, I'm not going right anymore. Like, oh my, I don't know if I had ever seen anybody, not just the like how quick you come out of your break on the out, but it's giving them a little of the in and giving them the out.
It's body control and balance and like the center of gravity. He's got all that stuff down. It's like real genius stuff happening in his body that other people's bodies can't do. It reminds me of Dante Hall, where used to do the call him a human joystick. He was a great returner for the Chiefs, and a hell of a problem in the slot, if I do say so myself, as a Broncos nickelback. But I ran into him at the draft. Great dude, but also a menace physically. And I know you remember that play. It was a year before or 2 years before I got to Denver, I think. Yeah, where they just threw him out. And he twisted everybody upside down, had somebody tackling Al Wilson. One of their defenders was running over their other defenders. I mean, just Google it. You'll find it. It's worth a watch. It's stupid. It is stupid.
Hey, did Al Wilson have a goal too?
He give off goal two vibes.
Yeah. Like,
he a goal two guy. I love Al, man.
Everybody loves Al Wilson. I've never heard of anybody who didn't love Al Wilson. I think part of it also is that his name is Al Wilson. But when me and my homeboy George and his live brother IB used to play Madden, we do the fantasy draft. And for some reason, we had concluded that his name was Al Goldtooth Wilson. We had been calling him Al Goldtooth Wilson. We imagine he wears loud party shirts. Like, we had just totally created a caricature of Al Wilson that is largely unfair. He was just Al Wilson. Now, this is the thing that jumps out about Dante Hall. And I said the H-Town part because, he from H-Town. But he was in high school when I was. Like, I want to say he was a senior when I was a sophomore. And so I remember he went to Texas A&M. And it was wild because they had 3 running backs come in the same year. It was Dante Hall, this dude from California named Sir Parker, S-I-R-R. Like, his name was Sir. Call him Sir. And another dude that my Texas people, when they hear this name, they're going to be like, oh, yeah. And that is the gentleman named DeAndre Hardiman. And I think, by the way, if you want to feel old, I think they said DeAndre Hardiman Jr. was killing it in Houston also. But Hardiman, at least for us Houston people, because he was like a newspaper legend, right? He was like the number 1, and Dante Hall was there. And I watched Dante Hall play at Texas A&M, and it was cool. And he got drafted in the 5th round. And then he got to the NFL, and I was like, where the hell was this before? Like, it made absolutely no sense to me. Like, it wasn't one of those where it was like, yo, people have been trying to tell you about this dude. It was like, I wonder what's going to come around. It was like a 5th round pick. That dude got in the NFL. I was like, I ain't seen nothing like this, like, ever. And then Devin Hester came, and then it was like, oh, I'm never going to see anything like this again.
Devin Hester, man. I found out he came up to me after one game and was like, I think we cousins. So somewhere along the line, my dad's family's from South Carolina. They live in Charlotte now, but there's some overlap somewhere along the line between me and Cuzzo. So
oh, wow.
Put my man in the Hall of Fame.
Hey, you know why he should be in the Hall of Fame? The greatest holdout of all time. Do you remember that one?
I don't even remember that.
Okay, so this is something like, it must have been 09 because me and Shannon were doing radio together. It was either 09 or 08. And Devin Hester had that crazy Devin Hester year where I want to say he had 6 touchdowns returning. I need you to stop and think about that. You don't even do that in Madden playing on pro. I think he had 6 touchdowns returning, which led the Bears in touchdowns. Thomas Jones may have tied him or whatever, but nobody scored more touchdowns on the Bears than he did. And so it was right before training camp. He just didn't show up. And he gave us a quote that has existed in perpetuity. And you probably just don't remember this. But I forget what the contract was. I think it was going to pay him, like, let's call it $600,000. And the quote was, I can't be out here playing for no $600,000. Come on, man. That was where the come on man came from. And they gave him his money and made him a receiver like the next week because he was that good at returning.
I mean, I don't understand how you can't give and to be fair, they blocked their asses off on special teams, but in the same way that Kadarius Toney return was really impressive. And you want to give credit to the whole team and the whole unit because it does matter. But there are very few people who would have made that return because you see what Toney did. You had to get to the right side to get to the wall. They kicked a line drive to the left. He starts it left and brings everybody to him and then freezes them all. Like, you can see what he's thinking. Once the play develops, you can see what he's thinking and then freeze them. That's why I said, like, athletically, it's genius stuff. And then gets there. And Devin Hester did the same thing. And I played against him a bunch of times or a few times at least, where you see him thinking and he is setting you up. Once you see him where he's starting to a certain direction, he is setting you up. And it's a difference maker. Even if you don't score touchdowns, guys punted out of bounds. You already got a 10-yard return because they scared to give it to him because they kick it short just so he won't touch it. If they do give it to him, he don't score, he's going to put it in the red zone. Like, I don't understand why you would be against paying that guy any money, whether he was a good receiver, a DB, or anything. Just go back there and catch them kicks and run.
Yeah, the issue was there was no precedent for like giving the.
So
I'm with you, but you know, like you ain't got to argue with me.
Yeah. I'm not talking to you. I'm just saying in general.
But I do get it upstairs where they like, yo, like, so what are we really supposed to do? Like, what exactly am I paying for? I don't like, and I'm with you, obviously, a lot of returning. And, you know, I'm with you, like, as if my knowledge has anything close to yours. But, of course, it's not just the returner, right? But did you see that clip of, I think it was during the national championship game where Desmond Howard was talking about this game?
Oh, yeah.
And I think I've talked about it on the show, but if you haven't heard it, Desmond Howard tells a story about his first return touchdown in the NFL, and he was playing for Washington, and they kicked it to Brian Mitchell, and Brian Mitchell got it and like threw a reverse pass, like a lateral of sorts, to Desmond Howard, and he took it to the house, and they were playing against the Falcons, and for whatever reason, Deion Sanders was so offended that he demanded to go in on the kickoff team and got a touchdown. Got the kick and got a touchdown. Clearly had just decided, I'm going to. How do you do that? Ain't nothing closer to 1 on 11 than running back a kickoff.
I haven't felt like that. I mean, from 8 to 10 years old, I was like, yeah, give me the ball, I can score. A couple games in high school where I was like, all right, we done by halftime. College, NFL, that you just like, you know what? It's touchdown time. Give it to me. Like, it's absurd. It's levels of athleticism and confidence and ability that I can't imagine that only comes from someone who could play professionally in multiple sports.
Yo, the thing about Deion and how fast Deion was, and I realized it in watching that clip, he was doing all that in the like Paula Poundstone shoulder pads. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Right? In the Grace Jones shoulder pads. Like, and he still looked like the fastest man on earth. Can you imagine if he was out here like look in these sleek joints like these cats are wearing now, how fast Deion Sanders would have looked?
I can't imagine it because I can't imagine someone looking faster than he looked. It's hard. Like, so how can it get faster than that? I mean, when you look at old Deion, like he didn't have, at least in my memory, he didn't have he had incredible short area quickness, obviously, but he didn't have the short area quickness of like Barry Sanders or Dante Hall. But what he did have was like acceleration, which is somewhat close to short area quickness, but he had great acceleration and top end speed, and obviously vision and like the proprioception and like spatial awareness and sports intelligence that you need for all that. But when you see him, it doesn't look as, I mean, it's obviously impressive, but it's not like a Dante Hall return or D'Angelo Hall return where it's like, oh, you know, shook a couple of people to their knees. He don't have to. He had put himself in position and saw a little gap and can get through it faster than anybody else.
And see, and that's Devin Hester also, because Devin Hester wasn't hitting them with the L1. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't that. The thing with Devin Hester, like, and you tell me if I'm wrong on this, acceleration is what I saw there, right? Like Devin Hester got to top speed so fast. It was so unreal. And how in the world was, when he was going to the draft, he only ran a 4.43, which just tells me he was like, I ain't got to prove nothing to y'all.
Yeah. Or, I mean, some people don't know how to run.
Yeah, you talk about that.
Yeah, I had that same experience where I was fast. Nobody was running away from me in college. Play against the fast receivers. No one was running away from me. But every year I would run a 4.5, 4.6 when we would do the 40 every year. And then I went and they taught me how to run. And then I ran 4.3s. And I'm like, oh, you just got to learn how to run. Don't nobody ever teach you how to run. And I ran track 1 year in high school, and I was like, this is dumb. We just running just to run. I'm good. I'm gonna go try to get some girls in the off season. I was not doing it, which I guess I could have done at track meets also, to be fair.
Yes, you could have even more so.
Yeah, I wasn't smart enough at the time, but I did all right for my little high school self. But like understanding how to run.
Look, man, in high school, going to the track meet like going to the Victoria's Secret fashion show, dog.
Yeah, it was. You're absolutely right about that. Not the JV track meet that I went to that first year, and that's why I didn't go back. I was like, no, this is BS. You had to be there for like 4 hours and just running just to run. You ain't tackling nobody or nothing.
I can never do the idea track. It's like, I have to remind people about this. I'm basically 2 years younger than the people in my grade, right? Great athletic success was not going to be the case on a grade level. Like when you put stuff on age level, I was a height, right?
Yeah.
But you put it on school track level, it wasn't happening. But I'm from Texas, right? You know how the football thing is. So, but my class, had been identified by the high school folks. This is one of those things when you in like a town school district with one middle school that goes to high school. The high school can easily scout who's coming up. And they looked down and were like, oh, that class is going to be something. So they came and they were like working us out in 7th and 8th grade, right? But you know, them 7th and 8th grade work them out. There ain't no varsity class, right? Like you got to do this to everybody. So even those of us who was never going to be there, they was evaluating us. So they had like basically the tire setup, right? The high knee tire setup. Apparently I was very good at that. And the coach came and told me, I think you might be a very good hurdler. I was like, so you think I'm just about to be out here running for no reason? Like when they would call it, like it's track practice.
Yeah.
What do you mean practice? What is there to practice? Y'all just gonna be out here running. Like, you know, and I got to high school and them cross country boys would be waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning to run like 4 miles. And it's wild. If you ain't got no Africans at your school, man, that cross country just be wall to wall white boys. And none of them look athletic. Not a single one of them look like an athlete, but they be waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning to do that. I'm like, what is the fun in this?
I mean, cross country is just to have something to put on your resume for college. I did extracurriculars because it's like it's a type of sport that like you're not gonna get hurt. You know how to run. You may not be good at it. It's not that intense, and maybe there are parts of the country where cross country is serious, but I felt like my school wasn't a sports school by any stretch. Our football team was 2 years old when I got there. But the people who did cross country were also the nerdy kids who needed to be like, hey, I played sports and I was on the National Honor Society. Cross country, give it to me.
Right. Like I got a buddy, no lie. He went to college, ran cross country. Season was over, dropped out. That's all he wanted to do. He just wanted to go down there and run cross country.
I don't get it, man.
At a very expensive school, by the way.
It's ridiculous. All your buddy got money or makes bad decisions or both.
Well, he's the fourth. You know what I'm saying? Like he's the fourth. He's my guy. I love him to death. But yeah, he said he just went there, ran it, had enough, went on about his business.
I got a little distracted. I'm sorry. I know we're doing a podcast, but these Devin Hester highlights is calling me.
Oh, no. The only thing I've ever seen anywhere close to Devin Hester is Dennis Gentry on the first on Tecmo Bowl. That's it. That's the only comp that I have for the Devin Hester returning thing. And I just can't figure out because he was a receiver, right? I remember at Miami, they tried so hard to figure out a way to like get some football out of him. Yeah. They, in part, that year that they got beat up in the tunnel. You remember that game where LSU beat them up in the tunnel and then beat them like 40 to 10 or something like that in the Peach Bowl? Part of why they got beat so bad is they were trying to get Devin Hester to come back to school, so they decided to put him on offense. But it was just like we talked about with Kadarius Toney and Percy Harvin and all these other dudes. They wasn't putting him out there to not give him the ball. And so it just like compounded the whole problem. But I could not believe that nobody could ever really figure out how to turn that into something football-y.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe it either. It's just back to Deion's incredible athleticism. It just hit me as we're talking about it. Is once you get to like in your high school, whatever, even in college, it's like you're a better athlete than a lot of guys, so you can play a bunch of different positions and be good at it. But to get to the NFL to be effective, you have to learn so many different nuances to a position. And the idea that Deion actually was a pretty good receiver when they put him out there, while also being a very good baseball player and being quite possibly the greatest cornerback we had seen up until that point, without, like, I know the 10,000 hours like rule has been largely debunked, but without theoretically putting in the same amount of work at those positions, like that's some special level athleticism stuff. That's like, because he's not out there like putting little tweaks at the top of his route and reading coverages to the nth degree. And like, he's not doing that. There's no way he can, because in the offseason, he playing baseball.
Right. By the way, in our discussion about maybe Devin Hester didn't know how to run, he ran a 10-4 100 meters in the year 2004.
Exactly. He knew how to run.
Yeah, he ran it. He just didn't feel like it that day. What do I need? My favorite thing with Lamar Jackson not running the 40. They're like, he's not running the 40 for reason. No, he's not running the 40 because why?
Yeah.
What is that going to tell you? that you could not see with your own two eyes.
Yeah, especially when you're that highly touted of a player. Like the only thing that could have done was hurt him. For Lamar Jackson. All that would have done. Oh gosh, Devin has to just put somebody on their back. My bad. I got to turn this off. I can't focus.
No, man, there's nothing quite like the oh my god returner, and we don't really have that anymore because obviously we don't really have returns anymore. But there's a whole bunch of just different little guys that I don't know if you remember the Ice Cube Gerald McNeil.
Mm-mm.
That was a great nickname. Called the Ice Cube because he couldn't get a hold of him. He's like a wet ice cube. There's the Ice Cube, Gerald McNeil. There was like Mel Gray. You just have all these dudes. They were just there to run back kicks, man. Just little bitty dudes, and they were fun to watch. Like I see why the NFL had to get rid of the kickoff, but it's kind of whack to lose it. Very similar to
the Houston Gamblers. Oh yeah, the Houston Gamblers. I'm watching Gerald McNeil. Take one to the crib.
Yeah, Ice Cube McNeil played for the Browns. That's where I first became aware of him, and he was a Tecmo Bowl legend also.
It's tiny.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Ain't no room for that little dude in the NFL no more.
With them big old pads. Speaking of little dudes, man, I just started doing some of this draft prep stuff, and I don't want to talk about draft prep in general.
Think about Bryce.
Man, I'm not a size type of guy normally. But man, that dude, small, like my height or shorter and like my weight or less. And I was small for a cornerback who only got hit when I decided to hit someone else.
Yeah, I am amazed by how readily people are writing that off. He's really small. Like I said with the Bears, where people... this run where people are trying to make the case for the Bears taking a quarterback, which just seems dumb to go back to rolling the dice. Like you got enough from Fields to try to make it work as opposed to trading it in for another lottery ticket. This isn't Josh Rosen and Kyler Murray is available. You know what I mean? Right. And so at that size, if you could never move on from Justin Fields for a guy 6 feet tall, 190 pounds. This isn't like he has to be Drew Brees. That's the only thing. And please note, the first 3 years of Drew Brees in this day and age, I mean, even in that day and age, first 3 years of Drew Brees, they would have drafted his replacement.
Yeah, they went and got Phillip Rivers on him. It's the two different conversations. I feel like has Justin Fields done enough for you to buy in? I think the answer is yes, clearly. And then it's like, the question about Bryce Young is another conversation. Oh, also Justin Fields wants a dome in Chicago, which is hilarious. And I love it. I can't imagine how the fans are reacting. All I want is Josh Allen to say the same thing. Give me a dome out here in Buffalo. But yeah, the Bryce Young thing, man, I don't know. Like I think in part because I'm a smaller guy and I never did gain the weight that everybody told me to gain. And I think that we're going to find out numbers on Bryce Young that might surprise us, that be different than the numbers that are out there if he goes to the combine. It's funny because like how Lamar was like, I ain't running the 40. I think Bryce should be like, you know what? I ain't doing that scale or that measurement. You see it all you need to see.
I don't feel comfortable stripping down to my draws. If you don't mind, you mind if I wear these sweatpants on the but
I mean, I don't know. Like it's a position where you're going to get hit. And I don't care so much about sitting over the line. Like he played behind Alabama's line. He'll find ways to get rid of pass. The height doesn't worry me as much. Athleticism is crazy. I think he's a special player. The accuracy, like the only reason why he's not like, we're not talking about him like Kyler Murray, clear number one, worth moving on from a bad quarterback, is because there's some tax that he has to pay where people are like, it's going to be hard to make it through the league at his size. And I kind of agree because I know how big I am.
Yeah.
And he's smaller than me.
The height worries me because of the weight. And I mean that in the sense that, like, you look at Russell Wilson, for example, he got to get outside, right? Yeah. Like you're going to have to put him on the move in order to account for some of those sidelines, at which point the weight issue becomes a thing, right? Like Kyler Murray's a thick one. Russell Wilson, especially. Russell Wilson is a fullback, right? Like they got that sturdy build. Bryce Young going to be out there thin, running them boots, running them sprint outs. They're going to be out here trying to get their waggle on. You know what I'm saying? In order
I actually think that's safer, honestly.
Yeah.
I actually think it's safer for him to do that than it is to stand in the pocket. Fair. Because, like if he's running and he's moving, he's like, there's an alertness to your body and a preparedness to be hit that if he just standing in the pocket and somebody miss a block, which is going to happen, and he hold on to it a second too long and Chris Jones jump on his back, or one of them other cocaine bears that be rushing the passer.
All right, I'm going to bring this up as we get into time, and I know you say you're not too deep into the draft prep, but I'm just going to ask because this is going to be a recurring thing. Have you gotten around to Anthony Richardson yet? Okay.
I know you were telling me about him a while ago.
All I'm saying is this. There will not be another to expect another Josh Allen trajectory is unreasonable. It is ridiculous. You and I have both said this. He's the most improved quarterback that we've ever seen. And I even think last year we saw the improvement might not have been as far as we thought it was. But even then, it blew our minds as more than we could ever expect, right?
Yeah.
But you and I were both going on programs and people asking questions about who's the next Josh Allen. I don't know why we're not doing that this year, because this year, the exact same Josh Allen is in the draft, and his name is Anthony Richardson. Now, can he become the Josh Allen that we ultimately saw? It's highly unlikely. But if you saw the Josh Allen at Wyoming and thought, whoa, that guy could be a quarterback, Anthony Richardson is him, but faster. And I'm not exaggerating. And Josh Allen ain't slow.
And against SEC competition.
You
don't have to extrapolate out what happens to whoever Wyoming is playing.
Nah. Somebody needs to probably let him sit for a year, maybe 2. They don't really do that anymore, though. We got to see what we got. I'm not convinced that playing young actually makes guys better players. I haven't seen any quantifiable, demonstrable evidence that it makes you a better player. But if some team, can you imagine, if Andy Reid were in a situation where, like it was with Alex Smith, where it's like, hey, we got a quarterback that'll be good for another year, and then we'll bring it around and see what you got? I'm just telling you. Somebody's going to try. I don't know who it is, but somebody's going to give it a go. And it's going to be the most high variance experiment that comes out of this draft.
I mean, it's worth it. It's worth a shot. If you got a first round pick towards the end of the first round, if he's still going to be around, because I haven't heard his stock shooting up just yet.
Oh, just you wait. He
ain't
going past 15. I tell you this. Ain't no way in the world that I'm taking no Will Levis over him. I have seen that gentleman play. And he's a look the part all-star. It's going to be very interesting to see, because I didn't get the greatest handle on Levis's mobility when I watched him play.
Right.
But it feels like people are forgetting that we do something different now with quarterback. You know what I'm saying? It feels like people are forgetting that looks the part means something different.
Yeah. And I think the important thing about the athleticism is it raises their floor, which gives them time to develop. And everyone needs time to develop. And if you surround a guy with a bunch of talent, and that is what takes the pressure off of him and gives him time to develop, that's great. Or if you have a design run game plan that allows him time to develop, then that works too. But I think that's really, more than anything, what you're looking for is skills. And then it goes back to where this whole conversation started. It's about the soft stuff. I mean, Jalen Hurts, it's about the soft stuff. He's not the most talented quarterback out there, but he improved in a way that Josh Allen improved. And it's about surrounding him with talent and betting on their mentality.
Yeah. And Will Levis, by the way, scored 9 touchdowns in 2021 and had 376 rushing yards. In 2022, he lost 107 yards rushing and had a mere 2.
Know what that's about.
Yeah, I need to, and remembering that sacks count against rushing yards in college, but still, that's a drop. But no, somebody gonna make that play on Anthony Richardson. I thought Josh Allen was gonna get somebody fired. Anthony Richardson will probably get somebody fired. But hey, gotta play to win. I think that's the move. Like I always said about Josh Allen, I said I wouldn't have taken him in the first round, but I understood why somebody else did.
Yeah. He's grown into something special. And
the
same thing with Jalen Hurts, man. I mean,
Jalen Hurts is one of the great, the last time we saw him on a stage this big, he got benched.
That's crazy.
Benched. And they won without him.
It speaks to him, obviously, and they put around him and like leaning in on him, I think and moving on from Carson Wentz. Like all of that stuff is not easy to do. I'm normally hesitant to overpraise the coaches in the front office, but it's hard to look at what's happened there and not see positive see a lot of positive coming from the coaches in the front office.
Well, here's the thing with the lean in, and I'm going to wrap us on this. The difference really between Hurts 2016 and 2017 in college was the difference between Lane Kiffin and Brian Daboll. And Lane absolutely leaned in on Jalen Hurts because that's what, like, say what you want about Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin is adaptable, and he is going to be like, who's the guy? Okay, well, this is what we're going to do. And Jalen Hurts was SEC Player of the Year and all of that stuff, Heisman finalist as a freshman. Daboll wasn't at that place in his journey yet. Mm-hmm. Like, it's almost like Daboll needed the year with Jalen Hurts to know what to do with Josh Allen. And he figured it out, but not with Hurts. People talking about, will the Eagles give him his money? That boy about to get $45-50 million a year. They got no way out of this one. And this that trick bag of that second round pick. You ain't got no 5th-year option on the second round pick. You got to pay this boy now.
Mm-hmm. It seems like Parker said Will Levis had foot, finger, and shoulder injuries this season. So that could have impacted his running numbers.
Okay. Foot, finger, and shoulder injuries. Got it.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just reading the chat, baby.
No. There's something to that though. Like as I'm looking at it, it was such a substantial drop that seems fair. However, I feel like we've been fake. Well, not we. They done got faked out by the Will Levises of the world a few too many times for me to jump in. I'll wait for some of these film nerds to tell me what time it is, but the people who seem highest on him are the people I trust the least.
Yeah. Your fashion on. I meant to bring this up before. I know we're running out of time, but I thought what you guys did on the NFL on Game Theory, I loved it. It's been my favorite episode, and that was incredible. And also hit him with that blue suede coat.
Hey, exactly. Like I walked out, all the people was clapping. I sat down and said, "Can you tell I don't pick out my own clothes?" I mean, it worked. It was hitting, but you know what I'm saying? I probably wouldn't have done that on my own, but I appreciate it. And please check that episode on HBO and HBO Max at Game Theory, where we took a look at the NFL and inspired change. I'm telling you, the results probably going to surprise you just a bit. I love the like focus groups afterwards too. Like that was funny too.
And that's real.
Really good. Yeah, like I know. We were not making them do nothing. So
I'm gonna tell your stylist to get you some of them crazy red mischief boots. You seen them things? That's been populating the internet.
Yeah, that ain't about to be me. We ain't going.
They can't push you that far.
Scottie Pippen wore the red shoes in the All-Star game in '94. We all still remember it negatively. It ain't about to be me. That's all I'm saying. But that is Domonique Foxworth. Check him out on Get Up. Check him out on Anscape. Check him out on Debatable. And definitely check him out on the Domonique Foxworth Show twice a week. Listen wherever you get your podcast. My man, I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, man.
All right. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here on The Right Time. Remember, hit the voicemail line, 860-516-4119. Tell us the craziest thing you ever saw at All-Star Weekend. 860-516-4119. Parker Owens and Adi Khan handling everything behind the scenes. Thank you, gentlemen. Remember, follow The Right Time. Rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. You only give us 4 stars, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. We are off for President's Day. So I will see you in a few more than a couple of days. Take it easy.
Thanks for checking out The Right Time with Bomani Jones podcast.
You can listen or follow on the ESPN app or wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Right Time
with Bomani Jones.